Hey everybody, Paul Esden Jr., aka Boy Green here, and welcome to Play Like a Jet Zone. This is a project I've been working on for a long time, and I'm finally ready to unleash it to the world. Happy game day, Jet fans. It's New York Jets versus Buffalo Bills, week 1 of the 2020 season. And to be honest, we didn't think we were going to get here. A couple of months ago, a world pandemic hits in the middle of March. There was a real chance that perhaps football wouldn't even happen. And we were able to make it happen. We're here, and the game is going to be played today between the Jets and the Bills. Quickly, I just want to take a minute before we dive into this pregame show, which, by the way, Play Like a Jet Zone will be every week throughout the 2020 New York Jets regular season. So every week, every 1 and 4 o'clock game, I just want to explain this at the top, every 1 and 4 o'clock game this season for the Jets, tune in right here to this YouTube page. Make sure you hit subscribe if you're new. And every week, 1 and 4 o'clock games, we'll have a pregame show on Sunday at noon. For all the other games, there's an occasion where the Jets will play on Thursday Night Football, Week 4 versus the Denver Broncos, Monday Night Football later in the season. We will adjust those pregame shows accordingly to what we have available for those games. So just to let that know. And we will have a post-game show after every game, shortly after the final whistle. And again, right here on this YouTube page, YouTube Live. I'm live here from the TOJ Digital Studios. We got a fat hat of Sam Darnold, got my Boy Green Jets helmet that Captain Jet made. We got the 2015 Jets towel, some fat heads. You see some of my studio that we're working with here, and we're going to continue to upgrade this throughout the season and the audio quality as well. So I want to thank you, Jet fans, the ones who have subscribed, the ones who have jumped in. Feel free to drop in comments on the YouTube live chat. You can also do so on Facebook and Twitter as well, because I want this to be an interactive show for everybody. With that being said, I do want to announce a sponsor of Play Like a Jet Zone. And for the local fans around here in Oswego, New York, are you missing Green's Oswego award-winning chicken wings? Or hell, have you never even had them before? Well, the time is now, and they're back for a limited time only. Text 315-406-8081 for more information. Again, for a limited time, the award-winning Green's Oswego chicken wing sauce are available. Again, all you have to do is text 315-406-8081. Here are a couple of the flavors they have available. Louisiana Lightning. This melting pot of flavors is an equal mix of traditional hot wing sauce, garlic parmesan, Creole chili pepper sauce, and a sweet barbecue sauce. And my personal favorite, the one me and my fiance have on game day, garlic parmesan, butter, 2 kinds of garlic, grated Parmesan cheese to create a unique, updated blend on an original recipe. And also 2 other flavors I want to clue you in on is Bee Sting, another award-winning flavor, a sweet and spicy sauce with a clover honey, an authentic sriracha chili sauce, and boom, some sesame seeds for some extra added crunch. And finally, El Diablo. Oh, that's right. It's not for the faint of heart, and the heat from this spicy sauce comes from fresh habanero peppers, and there's a rumor it's powerful enough to wake the undead. Each of these sauces come in a 16-ounce container, and it's only $10. That's all it is, baby. What are you waiting for? Reserve yours today by texting 315-406-8081. All right, let's dive into the game now. Week 1, Jets-Bills. And quite frankly, folks, this to me is a pivotal game for the New York Jets. Not just because they're opening up their season here, all right, and it's the start of the 2020 season. On top of that, in general, this is an opportunity for the Jets and Bills to open up for the 3rd time in 4 seasons and for the 14th time ever. And fun fact, by the way, this is the most between 2 teams on opening weekend since 1960. So the Jets and Bills have gotten used to opening up the season against each other over the last couple of years. By the way, the Jets have gotten the better of those opportunities historically, but recently the Bills have won the last couple in a row. And here's some just initial thoughts on this matchup. First off, let's go into the analytics. ESPN FBI has the Bills as a 63.5% favorite. By the way, that line has dropped throughout the week. Something that has bothered me, quite frankly, is the Buffalo media, the Buffalo fans that seem on their high horse, that think they're going to run through the Jets. I've heard people joke that this is a preseason game. I've heard others have joked, quite frankly, that it wouldn't be a satisfying win unless the Bills win by multiple scores. And to me, that's insulting, man. Now, I get it. The Jets obviously had a bad year last year. They haven't been in the playoffs since 2010. I get why people are overlooking the Jets. But this kind of disrespect from the Buffalo Bills fan base, from the media, Bills Mafia in general, quite frankly, it's irked me. And general manager of the Jets, Joe Douglas, has come out and said that obviously his team isn't living in a bubble, which is a good pun. But they're not living in a bubble, and they can see all the criticism and everything that is going on right now. And quite frankly, it's apparently pissed off the team. All I care about is if it ends up doing something. Does that irk the team and give them a little chutzpah, a little bulletin board material perhaps? And quite frankly, all the pressure's on the Bills. They're the one who are projected to win the division. They're the one that are the reigning playoff team. For the Jets, apparently they're expected to lose. So they are playing with what I like to call house money. So I really want to see how that develops here as we're moving along. So, again, that kind of irks me. But I will say this, and I am the self-proclaimed biggest Jets fan in the world. I am an eternal optimist. I'm obviously a diehard fan. But before the season kicks off, officially it will at 1 o'clock today for the Jets, that is, anyway. The thing I want to say is I think the Bills should be the favorite to win the AFC East. I think the Bills are a reigning playoff team. I think, quite frankly, they've only gotten better. Their defense has added pieces. Their offense added a number one wide receiver in Stefan Diggs. And while I'm not the biggest fan in the world of Josh Allen, let's be real. Since they've come into the league, and we'll get a little bit more into this as we get deeper into the broadcast here. Again, welcome to Play Like a Jet Zone. Again, you can drop comments in the YouTube live chat and also on social media to get involved. But continuing on here, again, I may not be the biggest Josh Allen fan in the world, but the Bills have done a really good job of surrounding Josh Allen with pieces to succeed. If he fails, that's on him. While on the other side, if we're being honest, the Jets haven't done the same courtesy for Sam Darnold. And I think that's something, of course, to pay attention to. And that, again, Josh Allen versus Sam Darnold will be a storyline we get into a little bit later on the show. Let's get to the injury report here. And we'll start off on the Jets side of things. The Jets have listed inside linebacker Avery Williamson, running back LaMichael Pirine, and wide receiver Denzel Mims as out against the Buffalo Bills. Marcus May is questionable, but reportedly he is trending towards playing. A couple of nuggets here on this. First off, Avery Williamson, let's start there. This is a guy who obviously had a disappointing year last year because he got injured in that preseason game. A lot of people threw criticism at Adam Gase for Avery Williamson being in that game that late as a starter and the lone starter that was out there. Nonetheless, the torn ACL, he's out. But I think people have forgotten how good Avery Williamson is. In 2018, he led the team in tackles with 120. He had 3 sacks. He had an interception. And he always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. And unfortunately, he will not be available in this game. But don't fret. They have Blake Cashman, who I like a lot out of Minnesota, a speedster with good range. He's a good pass coverage guy who I like a lot. Neville Hewitt, who has been on my podcast, the Jet Zone. And he's terrific. So I think they're going to find a way to get it done and be good enough. And I think they're set up a very good defensive line play, which should help those linebackers out. Let's go to LaMichael Pirine. He injured his ankle in the team scrimmage at MetLife Stadium. It looked nasty. It's not as bad as it could be, but nonetheless, he will not be available. In a corresponding move, the team elevated Josh Adams to the active roster yesterday to give them 3 healthy running backs in Frank Gore, Le'Veon Bell, and now they have Josh Adams, the former Golden Domer of Notre Dame. LaMichael Pirine, quite frankly, has been a pleasant surprise in camp. He has been very solid. He's found a way to kind of pop a little bit. And to be honest, like I said, that was a little surprising because that's not certainly what I expected from that perspective. I thought ultimately that Pirine would have popped a little bit, but I wasn't sure that he was going to go certainly to that level. So that, to me, I will say, guys like Frank Gore, I don't think Pirine was going to get much action anyway in this first game anyway. But anywho, he's out. Finally, Denzel Mims. He hurt his hamstring before he could ever get going. He hurt his hamstring before he could ever really get going, unfortunately, and he missed most of training camp. Then we thought, oh, wait, there's some positivity. Perhaps he's going to be ready for week 1. There was that optimism early in game week, and unfortunately, in Jets fashion, he injured his other hamstring. So both hamstrings are now hurt. He is certainly a candidate for short-term IR, and we'll explain that in a little bit for what the Buffalo Bills did on their injury report. But on the Jets side of things, that means, again, it's not official for Denzel Mims, but I could see it so they could get his hamstrings right. But for Denzel Mims, it's a bummer for Sam Darnold. That's a weapon they drafted in the second round that they thought could be an immediate impact. Unfortunately, that's not going to be the case for Denzel Mims. He's out of this game. That leaves the Jets in a tough spot. Here are the healthy wide receivers: Braxton Berrios, Jamison Crowder, Chris Hogan, Rashad Perriman. Let's go through those a little bit. Braxton Berrios is the backup slot guy to Jamison. Jamison's the slot guy who was very good. He had 14 receptions in the Week 1 game last year. Chris Hogan, that dude just came off the couch like a couple weeks ago. And finally, Rashad Perriman, a former first-round bust, high upside with his elite speed. He is a deep threat, but quite frankly, how much he was out for 3 weeks with ankle swelling. So how will he be in this game? Chemistry is going to be an issue. So here's the game plan I'd have for the Jets, just coming from this injury report perspective, is feed the tight ends. Chris Herndon has a very good relationship with Sam Darnold. Ryan Griffin is there as well at tight end. So for the Jets, work the middle of the field. That's something Sam Darnold likes to do anyway. So keep an eye on that. And also, don't be shocked if they go back to ground and pound. The old Rex Ryan days to get the running game going with the lack of chemistry at wide receiver. Maybe they can build it up over the weeks and get that play action going for Sam Darnold. I think that's something, obviously, we could see, again, from that injury perspective. Let's go over to the Buffalo Bills side. There's one big one. Josh Norman, the former Carolina Panther and Washington football team player. He didn't participate in practice all week. And then the Bills made it official on Saturday by placing him on injured reserve. Again, for those who don't know, the new injured reserve rules indicate that NFL teams can bring as many players off of IR as they'd like, so they can bring back Josh Norman. There's no limit. In the past, there was a limit. Josh Norman, by the way, will be out for the first 3 weeks of this season with that move. He was projected to start outside at corner opposite of Tre'Davious White. So now he's gone, which means Levi Wallace is going to step into that spot. And quite frankly, that's something I'd keep an eye on if you're the Jets. Maybe that's somewhere where you can pick. It's really tough in the AFC East. If you look at the corners, Stefan Gilmore with New England, Trey White for the Bills, who's a superstar. The Bills have Xavier Howard. They also spent a lot of money on Byron Jones in free agency. So it's not going to be easy against anyone in the division, let alone the Buffalo Bills. So if I'm Sam Darnold, I take a peek where Levi Wallace is on the field and maybe take advantage of that mismatch. All right, let's go into some of the top storylines in this game. We'll also talk about the weather coming up for this contest and how that could possibly affect things in this game, and I think certainly it will. And one quick nugget here, that make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page. Again, we're going to be having a lot of great content coming out here in over the next couple of weeks. It's a brand new channel. I appreciate everybody who's joined in right now and watching this Week 1 Jets versus Bills full breakdown and here on the show. So make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you stream and share as well. We really appreciate it. All right, let's jump into some of the top storylines for this game. And we'll start with Josh Allen versus Sam Darnold. This is something we're going to talk about for a long time. Both of these quarterbacks are friends. Both of these quarterbacks are taken in the same draft class. And ultimately, here for the Jets, okay, this is something I hinted at earlier. Josh Allen has been better supported in his NFL career than Sam Darnold has. That is non-negotiable. That is not debatable, okay? But the fact of the matter is, just purely off talent, Sam Darnold is the better quarterback. He's better in every measure. He has a much higher ceiling. He came in with a higher floor than Josh Allen did, at least initially coming into the league. And it's an interesting debate. It's an interesting discussion. It always gets brought up when the Jets and Bills play each other. And hell, even when they don't play each other. But some of it you can't, quite frankly. Okay? The offensive line being bad. The weapons being bad. for Sam Darnold. They have not done a good job of, quote, wrapping their arms around Sam Darnold, as GM Joe Douglas said they would, putting this thing together. He said they would do a good job of wrapping it. Joe Douglas promised Sam Darnold's parents, we will give you protection. We will give you playmakers. And I think he's done a good job on the offensive line, which we'll talk about in a second. And the playmakers, there's some upside with Brashad. I like Jameson, but come on, there's no number one wide receiver on this team, man. They need weapons. And I don't know whether you're a Robbie Anderson truther or whether you're not, whatever the case is, the point is the Jets are in a tough spot as it comes to the wide receiver position and certainly the talent. Again, if I'm the offensive coordinator, I'm not. I'm feeding the tight end position. I'm going Chris Herndon. I'm pounding Ryan Griffin. I'm pounding the running game. I'm flexing Le'Veon Bell out, getting creative this year. Maybe some sets where you have Le'Veon Bell and Frank Gore on the field at the same time is something else also I would consider diving in on. But ultimately, as we're talking about kind of the Sam Darnold, Josh Allen debate for a second, the thing I would also say about this Sam Darnold thing is let's take a peek at that offensive line. So we'll look at the protection real quick. Mackay Becton, left tackle. He is a mountain of a man. He struggled a little early in camp with guys like Jordan Jenkins and Frankie Louvu pulling some veteran savvy moves on him that he kind of got tripped up on here and out. But then he got better. Then he learned from his mistakes. If mistakes are going to happen, you want them to happen in training camp so you can learn from those mistakes and make things happen. That is the key. Let's go to left guard, okay? Alex Lewis, solid. He was a guy that Jets traded a late conditional round pick for right before the season started. He's been fantastic and was rewarded with an extension. At center, Connor McGovern. No one's talking about Connor McGovern. What a massive upgrade it is at the center position. We had guys, since Nick Mangold retired, Jonathan Harrison, who's a nice guy, but let's be real. Ryan Khalil, Wesley Johnson. Who are these people? Okay, so I think Connor McGovern is a massive upgrade there at the center spot. Right guard, Greg Van Roten. Quite frankly, it's an upgrade. How big of an upgrade? We'll see week one here. Jets-Bills coming up in a little less than 45 minutes. We'll take you all the way there to kickoff here on the Play Like a Jet Zone pregame show right here. But I think he is an upgrade because, quite frankly, have you seen what's been going on with Brian Winters in Bills camp? Not good, folks. Not good. Okay? Now, I'll say this. Brian Winters, the Jets saved $7.5 million by cutting him. The Bills immediately scoop him up. They have an injury at guard. John Feliciano is out and will be out for the next couple of weeks, so there's a thought that he could kind of plug and play there at guard for the Buffalo Bills. We'll keep an eye on that. But A.J. Epinesa, did this nasty bull rush on Brian Winters, and he was laying on his back. I think that's something perhaps Quinton Williams could take advantage of. Again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then finally, right tackle, George Fant, brought in from Seattle, an athletic basketball player type athlete who is coming in. I think he's got a high ceiling, but the problem is I think he's got a low floor. He doesn't have a lot of experience, so the Jets are going to have to kind of wing it a little at right tackle, which is not a great thing. But again, the offensive line has the ability to be average. And while most people, if there's not a Jet fan listening to this, they may go, average, that's not good. Have you seen the Jets offensive line last year? Oh, yeah. I'll take average. I'll take average for 500, Alex. Average would be great because the offensive line is the key to the pie. It's the keys to the car. It's the cogs of the machine. A good offensive line protects Sam Darnold. A good offensive line opens up rushing lanes for Le'Veon Bell. A good offensive line allows wide receivers and tight ends to get open and allow plays to happen. That's the key. So having an offensive line, as Joe Douglas has said time and time again, is a paramount. It is so important to set up the trenches ahead for the New York Jets. So I feed it. I agree. They need to keep the offensive line going. And in my opinion, I think it is much better than last year. How much? We'll have to see. But let's go over to the Buffalo Bills side. Again, is this Bills, Josh Allen versus Sam Darnold debate. For the Bills, what do? They give him a number one wide receiver in Stefan Diggs. John Brown, Smoke, the number two wide receiver now for the Bills, he's good. Last year at over 1,000 yards, okay? Remember that embarrassing streak the Jets had from 2007 to 2015 where Jericho Cotchery was the last 1,000-yard receiver and went all those years without one, and then all of a sudden they double-dipped with Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker, receiver, but they had John Brown there. And then what did they do? They had Stefan Diggs. Now John Brown, instead of facing the number 1 corner, will slide in to face the number 2 corner. And Cole Beasley obviously play in the slot. So I think the Bills have done a phenomenal job. The weapons are there. They got Devin Singletary. They drafted Zach Moss, who's kind of a grinder there in the backfield. That tight end, Dawson Knox, who I like a lot of upside there. The Bills' offensive line is very solid. A lot of the word you will hear with Buffalo Bills and this word all the time is continuity. Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, returning 30-plus starters from last year, or 30-plus players, from last year's team. The Bills have a lot of continuity, and in a offseason where there was no preseason, reduced training camp, there's a lot of optimism towards continuity. There's a lot of optimism towards what is known as opposed to what is unknown, right? So that's why the Bills are certainly getting a lot of love. But this conversation between Josh Allen and Sam Darnold really has been about how the teams have kind of, done what they've done around each player. I had Sal Capaccio, WGR 550, join me for the Jet Zone podcast, which is every week, every Wednesday, by the way. Subscribe to that wherever you listen to your podcast. And he joined us and said, hey, if Sam Darnold was on this team, Sam Darnold was on the Bills, he'd be a superstar. If Josh Allen was on the Jets, he'd be a bust. And that always tells you about quarterback situations. And this leads me to this question for me. I continue to ask myself, I continue to ponder on my radio show. I continue to ponder on my podcast. Now I'm bringing it here to the visual, play like a Jet Zone. Can Sam Darnold elevate the talent around him? Can he? The best players in the world can. If we go to The Last Dance over the summer, Michael Jordan, Chicago Bulls, and again, I'm not trying to compare Jordan to Darnold, but just the situation. Michael Jordan made the players around him better. Average guys became good guys. Great guys became even better guys. And Michael Jordan demanded excellence, and his players around him were better. Sam Darnold obviously does not have great talent around him. Again, I think the offensive line is average, and that would be good. I think tight ends are solid. I think the running backs have a lot of potential, and the wide receivers, we'll see what happens. Can Sam Darnold make those players better? If he can, they'll have a chance in every game this season. It's something, quite frankly, Jet fans aren't familiar with. They're not accustomed to it, and that is having a quarterback. When you have a quarterback, you have a chance in any game. It doesn't matter. When Packers have Aaron Rodgers, when Buccaneers have Tom Brady, do they ever go into a game? When Tom Brady was on the Patriots, and maybe it's different because it's Tom Brady, but did you ever go into a game and say, Patriots have no chance? No. Do you ever go into a game with the Packers and say they have no chance? No. Seahawks, Russell Wilson? No. And do you know why? Do you know why? It's because you have a quarterback. If you have a quarterback, you always have a chance. You can always win the game. And Jet fans don't know what that feels like. Now, with Sam Darnold, I'm starting to get that feeling in my gut. Where every game, like week 2, again, I don't want to jump ahead, but they play the 49ers, the NFC champion 49ers, who have a great defense, great coaching staff, great players all over the board. Now, a lot of people, I'm going to look ahead, are going to say the Jets have no chance in hell to do anything in that game. And this is why I think different. They've got a quarterback, and a quarterback can make things happen. So that's the point. So quarterback play is interesting. Will Sam Darnold take that next leap? In his first 2 seasons, here's a stat that I remember off the top of my head. I wish I didn't. In his first 2 seasons, he's missed 6 games. Some of that from injury, some of that from something called mononucleosis because, of course, a Jets quarterback would contract that. Okay? But in those 6 games missed, the Jets are 0-6. Okay? That's for 2 reasons. First off, the Jets have not had a competent backup over the last 2 years, and they still don't today. Joe Flacco, by the way, is out. They elevated Mike White from the practice squad, who I like a lot, but not a lot of experience, so hopefully we don't have to see him. But Joe Flacco is the most competent backup quarterback the Jets have had in quite some time. So that's part of the reason. The other reason is the Jets are not good enough to overcome it without Darnold. But the good question is, are they, with Darnold, able to overcome some deficiencies, whether at wide receiver or a certain spot on the offensive line? That is the key. And that's the thing that I continue to think of, the thing I continue to ponder. Hopefully we'll see that on game day today. Jets-Bills, 1 o'clock. Another storyline here, and again, I apologize in advance for bringing this up. The kicking battle. The kicking battle. That's right. The kicking battle. And that is Tyler Bass. Yes, rookie kicker for the Buffalo Bills. Now, if we remember last year, the Jets win that game. We all know they didn't. They collapsed. Sam Darnold was battling effects of mononucleosis. C.J. Mosley goes down in the second half, and it all falls out. But the kicking battle could be huge today. I think that for multiple reasons. First off, the weather. We'll talk about that in a little bit. That could affect today's game. And number two, I think in this first week of NFL games, again, we saw Chiefs-Texans, and maybe that's a little different. They started out slow, and then the offensive explosion kind of came a little bit later. I don't think a lot of people are going to be blowing people out in week one, quite frankly. I think there are going to be a lot of close, tightly battles. And I think every point's going to count, especially in this game. I think it's going to be a slugfest. I'm hoping not 7-6, but I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think, and I'll give my prediction before we get out of here at the end of the show, but I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, and that means every point's going to count. Now, Tyler Bass, he won the kicking job from Stephen Hauschka. Hausch money, okay? Stephen Hauschka. He won it from the veteran who, by the way, Stephen Hauschka was a really solid player for the Bills. On their playoff run, again, they didn't win a playoff game. They haven't won a playoff game since 1995. Take that, Bills! I'm sorry. Let me rein it in. But with that being said, the Buffalo Bills haven't won a playoff game since 95. But when they made the playoffs for the first time since 1999, if I remember correctly, that 17-year streak, Stephen Hauschka was a big part of that. So this year, they have Tyler Bass. He's a rookie. But in camp, players aren't running after him trying to kill him, right? You're not trying to go all out on a kicker in practice. We're talking about practice, okay? In a game where live bullets are flying around and someone's trying to take your head off, maybe that affects the rookie, gets in his brain. The weather is going to play a factor. Again, we'll get into that in a little bit. The kicking battle could be huge in determining the victor of this game, just like week one last year. And let's keep it going here on this. So let's go to the Jets kicking side. They have Sam Ficken. Are you freaking kidding me? They couldn't find anybody else? Now, this is the thing I'll say. I wish the Jets would have brought in some better competition at kicker during camp. They brought in Brett Maher, who's got a monster leg, but he couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat, and that's why he lost the kicking battle. So Sam Ficken is Ficken mediocre, Ficken average maybe, and so I'm a little concerned. Actually, a lot concerned. I would have loved to see the Jets throw a dart at like Rodrigo Blankenship out of Georgia, who won the Colts kicking job. I believe he came over as an undrafted free agent. The Jets did that at punter, and Braden Mann, I think he's going to be the Jets punter for a long time coming. But I wish they would have thrown a kicker flyer at Rodrigo Blankenship or somebody of that ilk to come in and be their kicker. I'm not supremely confident in Sam Ficken, which, again, hopefully we don't see more kicking issues from that side of things. So a few things to watch out for from that perspective. Again, we are 30 minutes from kickoff. You're listening to Play Like a Jet Zone, a brand new production, a brand new show. I am Boyd Green. I am the host. For everyone listening in, giving likes and joining and subscribing while I'm on air, thank you for your support. I appreciate it. I'm a diehard, self-proclaimed biggest New York Jets fan in the world, and this is a dream come true to be doing this YouTube live show for you guys. So make sure you follow on social media at BoydGreen25 everywhere, and make sure you subscribe to the new channel right here. A few other battles to watch out for in this game. Mackay Becton versus Jerry Hughes. Mackay Becton will be starting at left tackle. He will be the first rookie left tackle to start for the Jets since DeBrickashaw Ferguson back in 2006. So obviously massive expectations for the big man out of Louisville. But here's the thing. He will likely be lining up against Jerry Hughes, a savvy veteran who has been there, done that for the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Bills don't have like a dynamic Nick Bosa on the team like the Jets will see in week 2. But what they have in week 1 is a bunch of guys who can have sacks. I talked about it with Sal Capaccio on my podcast, and here's the thing. They have a couple of guys that can be 5, 6, 7, 8 sack guys. They don't have anyone who's a dynamic double-digit sack artist, but they do have a lot of guys that can make some different things happen. Jerry Hughes is the guy to watch. I think Mackay Becton is obviously going to struggle. I think a lot of rookies are that are coming in the league. To not expect it, I think, would be naive. So I think we're going to have some issues. But hopefully he's figured out a few things and he's learned a few tricks since going into training camp. Let's go to another battle. Whichever number 2 wide receiver versus Levi Wallace. Again, if you missed earlier in the show, Josh Norman has been ruled out for the Bills, and he was placed on short-term IR, which means he'll be out for the first 3 weeks of the season. So that means Levi Wallace will be stepping up to play number 2 corner for the Buffalo Bills. That's something I think the New York Jets can take advantage of. But who is that? Again, the Jets don't have dynamic wide receiver play, but that's a matchup I think they could take advantage of if the Jets decide to go outside the numbers, maybe a little bubble screen action, whatever they decide to do. I think that is a matchup to watch out for. Again, I think the game plan for this game, considering weather, which again I'll get to just a second, I think you're going to want to eat the middle of the field. I think you're going to want to work it from that standpoint. So let's just jump right into the weather. I've been teasing it for the first 30 minutes of the show. Let's dive in. Let's go live on the scene to Boy Green. Hey, everybody, here is your weather report. Possible light rain throughout today's contest. It is 69 degrees, but the biggest thing to watch for is 15-mile-per-hour winds expected at kickoff. And as we progress through the game, the wind reportedly is supposed to get worse. Again, cue the kicking game that I talked about earlier, cue the passing game. Stefan Diggs, John Brown, Sam Darnold, whether they're going to try to throw a lot on the outside. Again, keep an eye out for that. The wind's supposedly going to get worse throughout the game. Some light rain is expected as well. That could affect how the game goes as well, and it plays into that sloppiness factor for the New York Jets. So, again, weather could be a huge factor in today's game. Season opener, lifter, New York Jets versus the Buffalo Bills. All right, another matchup to watch out for is Jets corners versus Stefan Diggs. Here's the thing. Here are the starting corners for the New York Jets. You have Pierre Desir on the outside. I love Pierre Desir. I think he's a great match for Greg Williams in the zone schemes he runs. I think Pierre Desir is great. The problem is he hasn't gotten a lot of reps in training camp. He was battling some injuries. On the other outside corner, Bless Austin. Bless up. I love Bless Austin out of Rutgers. What an amazing story. All the injuries that he battled through in college to come back and potentially and now be a starting corner for the New York Jets. I think it speaks to his upside. It also speaks to lack of depth at corner for the New York Jets. This is a huge opportunity for Bless to solidify a starting spot moving forward. And in the slot, Brian Poole, more injury/dehydration issues early in camp really robbed him of a lot of reps and really caused some issues throughout training camp. Now he's back. He's had some time. He is obviously a terrific slot corner, had a wonderful first year with the New York Jets last year. Hopefully he can build on that. You'll likely be matched up with Cole Beasley all day long. But the matchup I'm looking for is Stefan Diggs versus the outside corners. Maybe they'll play him a little bit in the slot as well to kind of mix and match him. But Stefan Diggs is a dynamic threat. But here's the thing. This is not a shot. For any Buffalo Bills fans listening into this pregame show, I'm not trying to take a shot at Josh Allen. Again, I can't say that enough. But he's an erratic quarterback in terms of some of his throws. A couple of times he'll be a wide open guy, he'll throw it, and then he'll peg a guy in the stands. He won't be doing that today because there are no fans at Orchard Park, for those who don't know. Actually, fun fact, the only NFL team that will have fans today is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I believe there's a punchline there somewhere. I'll let you guys fill in the blanks. But nonetheless, keeping it here, Jets-Bills, again, I think Josh Allen is a bit erratic. You look at his accuracy, it's not been great, and he's not an accurate thrower. But he doesn't have to be the most accurate quarterback in the world because Stefan Diggs, he's got a great catch radius. He's got a great wingspan. So if Josh Allen could throw it in the general vicinity, of Stefan Diggs, maybe Stefan can make a crazy catch and haul it in. So, again, I'm a little worried about that matchup because, again, Pierre Desir has not gotten a lot of time. If they line him up on Bless Austin, the youngster who's, has a little bit of experience from last year, but he's been banged up. So Stefan Diggs versus Bless Austin, that could be a mismatch. I like him versus Brian Poole because I think Brian Poole is very good, but that's a matchup to watch out for in this contest. And let's also go into this. Before we get into prediction time, and we'll wrap up the show in a little bit, before we get to that, there's several players I want to highlight that are of key importance to the New York Jets this year. One of them I want to bring up that we haven't talked about in the show yet is Quinton Williams, the former third overall pick, by all accounts, had an underwhelming rookie season. Okay? He didn't get that sacks. He didn't create that pressure, that he did at Alabama. And that was tough for the Jets. They're going to have a defensive line rotation, I think, with the reduced training camp. I think with no preseason, we're going to see a lot of rotation. That's what I noticed in the Chiefs-Texans games. A lot of linebackers were rotating in and out. A lot of defensive linemen were rotating in and out. So I think we're going to get a lot of rotation. But Quinton Williams, if I ask you, with C.J. Mosley opting out, and now he's gone, we could get into that story, and then Jamal Adams gone, who is the best defensive player on the Jets? That's what I ask you. Who? Is it Marcus May? Maybe in his development. And if he's unable to do so, bust label is going to be thrown around. Hell, it's already been thrown around. And I think it's too early for that. But the Jets have a very good defensive line. Arguably, it's their deepest positional unit on the team. They've got Steve McClendon, Foley Fatukasi, Quinton Williams, Nathan Shepard, who showed a lot last year as well on that defensive line. But someone has got to erupt. Someone has got to be a disruptor. Somebody's got to make some plays. Quinton Williams is that guy, and the weakness on the Bills' offensive line is Brian Winters. It's at guard. That's where John Feliciano is no longer there. Penetrate that guard spot, interior pressure, and also, this is just kind of another key since we're talking about it, contain Josh Allen. He's got legs, and I'll say, when he was coming out of the draft, I undervalued his ability to move and groove, extend plays, do a little Ben Roethlisberger, a little Russell Wilson action, I underrated that, and I admit that. But now we know what he is. You've got to contain. The defensive end's got to keep him inside the pocket, bottle him up. He's got a laser beam, a freaking launcher, on that shoulder. But the Jets need to do their best. Getting a Quinton Williams that can create some interior pass rush up in his grill, and then he gets flustered and fumbles or does something stupid. If you saw the Bills-Texans game, you saw Josh Allen do a lot of crazy crap, whether throwing in double coverage to a fullback. What? Randomly pitching the ball. He's a guy who's willing to risk it to get the biscuit. The Jets and Greg Williams are going to be throwing the kitchen sink at this Buffalo Bills offense. I think that is another area they can pinpoint and try to take advantage of. So Quinton Williams, again, starts week 1. We need to see the guy who was drafted 3rd overall. The guy that the Jets picked over a guy in Josh Allen. And no, I'm not talking about the quarterback. I'm talking about the dynamic blue chip pass rusher for the Jaguars that the Jets passed on. And he looks terrific. Quinton Williams needs to prove to the Jets that he is the real deal. And speaking of the real deal, this offseason, the Jets traded away Jamal Adams. And, even today, not seeing Jamal Adams going to be running out of that tunnel to me is a wow. It's a, man, did you think we were all going to get here? Did you think that was going to be it for Jamal Adams? And, he's gone. He was obviously acting kind of cancerous, all the social media nonsense. And now he's gone. The Jets have 2 first-round picks, so we'll be looking ahead to the drafts of the coming years. But this is game day. We're not looking ahead to the drafts. We're looking at who's on the team right here, right now. And who is that? Marcus May. He's another player I'd like to highlight. Not only is he battling calf tightness and some ankle issues, so that's something to keep an eye out for. Again, he's questionable. He's expected to suit up for this game, Jets-Bills. Been on this broadcast now since 12 o'clock as we take it to kickoff. But Marcus May, since going into camp, let's just talk about him in general in his career. So he's been kind of the injury label, although he's been pretty healthy in the NFL for the most part after kind of getting his crap together. And number 2, Marcus May has been in the shadow of Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams is a loudmouth, big guy. Hey, look at me. I love me some me. I used to love when T.O. said that. I love me some me. And Jamal Adams, again, is a special player. I'm not trying to trash him. He was a special player, but now he's gone. And now Marcus May, who's been living in the shadow of Jamal Adams, can step up to the plate and can be the guy for the New York Jets. And according to camp, what we were able to see from the media perspective, Marcus May has been a superstar. He has had a terrific camp and is in line for a big year. I just hope that he can stay healthy. And if he can, I think Greg Williams is going to use him all over the place. And speaking of that, just a quick side note on some of the other safeties. Bradley Mcdougall coming in, he is not just a throw-in that a lot of people have suggested for the Jamal Adams trade. Joe Douglas targeted Bradley Mcdougall. Did you guys ever see the movie Draft Day, Kevin Costner? I love Draft Day, by the way. It's one of my favorite movies. Traditionally and ritually, I watch it every year before the NFL draft. That is a fun fact. And not that you needed to know that, but I just felt like I should say it. But anywho, speaking of that, in that final scene where they're like, we want Putney. Throw in Putney. He's like, where did that come from? Just give us Putney. I don't think that's how Bradley Mcdougall is thrown into the trade, but even still, it brings me great memories. But Bradley Mcdougall is a solid starting safety, and the wild card is Ashton Davis out of California. He's a freak. He's a track star. He's got speed. He is a guy who's a former walk-on, so he's grinded. That's someone the Jets fans can root for. He's a guy that I think can be that third safety looks, and I think he may take a pick 6 to the house tonight. Weird, bold prediction, but I'm an Ashton Davis guy. And when he was initially drafted, you're like, Jamal Adams, Marcus May, Ashton, how does he fit in here? I trust Greg Williams. Last year, he made chicken salad in terms of coaching all year long. It was absolutely magnificent. I expect that again this year with what they have. So look out for safeties. Again, Marcus May, I think, is going to be special. Two other players I want to bring up here before I give my final prediction and send you out of here. And again, thank you everybody who's jumped in, people jumping in the stream and leaving and liking and sharing and subscribing. Thank you again. One more shout out to that. Again, this is Play Like a Jet Zone, a brand new show. We're going to be doing it for every pre and post game. So make sure after the Jets-Bills game, shortly after the final whistle, we'll be jumping right back on here in studio to talk Jets-Bills and how it all went out. So thank you, everyone. More and more people subscribe. Thank you so much. It means the world to me. We'll have a post-game recap shortly after the final whistle, so make sure you join us for that after the show. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Now let's dive in. Two more players I want to take a closer look at. Chris Herndon. I can finally say it. I've been a little quiet on this all year long, and here's why. I'm a huge fantasy football guy as well. I'm in a bunch of leagues. I'm in a paid league as well. And my sleeper or guy I have like highlighted on my board is Christopher Herndon. This guy, I believe, can be one of the best tight ends in all of football. He is a freak. And there's three things I talk about when I talk about tight ends, and people ask me about tight ends. Security. First off, security, blanket for Sam Darnold. If no one's there, dump it off to Herndon. Number two, attack the seam. Christopher Herndon is a mismatch nightmare. He can run it up the seam. He's faster than a linebacker. He's bigger than a corner. He can be this versatile chess piece for Adam Gase in this offense. Adam Gase historically has not used the tight end, but historically he hasn't had a guy like Christopher Herndon. And finally, a red zone weapon. Expect Chris Herndon red zone today. I'm expecting at least one touchdown, but I think it could be multiple touchdowns for Chris Herndon today. Feed the beast. And I love Chris Herndon. I think he could be a superstar. And I have him in almost every fantasy league I have, outside of maybe one or two. I have Chris Herndon. So buy Chris Herndon stock. If he's available in your league, he shouldn't be, but scoop him up and plug him into your lineup. That's your fantasy advice from yours truly. And so Chris Herndon, I think, is going to be special. It's all about being healthy. Obviously, he's had some suspension issues. He only played 10 snaps last year. He had some injuries. And it's just been a lot of bad luck. But if he can get on the field, Chris Herndon can be that kind of player for the New York Jets. And one final player, and the most obvious, Sam Darnold, this big fat head behind me. He's not a fat head. That's what they are. Sam Darnold is the straw that stirs the drink. Is this Jets team a Super Bowl team? Probably not. But if you look at this team and you can pick things, they don't have a number one wide receiver. They don't have a number one corner. They don't have a top edge rusher that you fear, right? You look at the offense. They don't have that number one wide receiver, as I just mentioned. Okay? There are holes all over the roster. I get that. I'm not blind. I'm not naive. But what I mentioned earlier is this, okay? The New York Jets will live and die by Sam Darnold. If he's terrible, the Jets will be terrible. If he's good, the Jets can be good. Where he goes is where the Jets go, okay? It's that simple. If the Jets are 3-13 after this year, that means Sam Darnold was injured, suspended, or horrible, or all the above. There's no way he's going to be great and the Jets are going to be bad. That's not going to happen. He will either overcome the deficiencies on the roster or he won't. And he's the most important player for the New York Jets. That can't be understated in any way, any shape or form. So for the Jets, it's about Sam Darnold this year. And after this year, the Jets will have to make a decision on his fifth-year option. Now, again, just like everybody else, I'm sick and bleeping tired of seeing, ooh, Trevor Lawrence to the Jets next year. He would be, by the way, if that happened, he would be in the same position as Sam Darnold, a team that is lacking pieces all around. If you want to, the Jets finally have a franchise quarterback. You want to know a team I hate? I hate the Indianapolis Colts. Why the hell do you hate the Colts, Paul? They had Peyton Manning for like 20 years, right? They had Peyton Manning for like 20 years, okay? And then he gets hurt. They suck 1 year, and then they get Andrew Luck, and boom, another 8-9 years of greatness, okay? The Jets, they've had dumpster fire crap for the last 20 years. I love Chad Pennington. I have that fat head in the other room, but let's be honest with ourselves. The Jets haven't found a quarterback. And then with Sam Darnold, they finally have one, and they're going to screw it up. So please, surround him with talent. It's a little bit late for that in week one. But again, the question is, can he elevate the talent around him? If he can, the Jets are going to have a chance in every. The thing I'll say is this: is when we do like schedule previews, and people say, "Hey, what's the record going to be for the Jets?" Right? What's it going to be, Jets? Are they going to be 10-6? Are they going to be 9-7? Are they going to be 4-12? What are they going to be? I don't like doing that because, as an eternal optimist, I literally go every week of the season. They play the Bills this week, and I think they're going to win. That's going to be my prediction in a minute. And then they play the 49ers next week. Now, a lot of people are picking the Jets, whether against the Bills or the 49ers. But I can always envision a way that they can win. I come up with a game plan. You go, you know what? The Jets could win if this, and this happens. So I don't like predicting losses because, quite frankly, I always think they can win. I am an optimist from that standpoint. So I do want to share that with you. So with that being said, I think the Jets could be in contention for the playoffs. And quite frankly, they should be. They haven't been to the playoffs since 2010. And think about it. This year, the playoffs have expanded. Instead of 6 teams, there's 7 this year. It's that much easier to make the playoffs. And while the schedule is a bit tougher, you're playing like the NFC West and the 49ers and Seahawks and Rams and some of those good teams. That's arguably the best division in football. If Sam Darnold is good, he can make all the difference. Let's wrap this up with prediction time, and we'll end the show every week with this on our pregame special here. Again, make sure you tune in for the postgame special. I'll talk about that in a minute. I think it's going to be a sloppy contest. But I think the Jets are being overlooked. I think they're being criminally overlooked. And I'm going to ride with the green and white for this game. I'm looking at a 21-20 finish for the Jets. It's going to be a nail-biter, so be on the edge of your seat, Jet fans. But I think this one's going to come down to the nitty-gritty. I think this one's going to come down to the bitter end. I think it's going to be sloppy. We talked about weather. Again, if you missed the weather report earlier, there's going to be light rain, a lot of wind, expected 15-mile-per-hour winds, and it could only get it. Thank you, Sand. Jets, baby. Jets, Jets, Jets. Love the comments on the YouTube live chat. You guys can definitely use that in the post game as well, baby. But, yeah, in terms of this game, I think the Jets are going to win. I think it's going to be sloppy. I think the weather's going to be nasty. But I think 21-20, maybe a defensive score, maybe a special team score. We'll see what happens. I'm going to see, again, I called it Ashton Davis pick 6 earlier in the show, and I think you're going to see a lot of Herndon and a lot of Bell. And I think Bell's going to remind people why he's one of the best running backs in this league. I think Herndon's going to show why he should be in some of that top tight end conversation in the world of the NFL as well. And again, this has been the Play Like a Jet Zone pregame stream. It will be on every week. So if you're new to the show, which you should be because this is the first week, make sure you subscribe to this brand new YouTube channel, and we're going to be improving the backgrounds and everything else, the audio quality and everything as we progress through the season with some new additions. So I hope you guys can join us, and make sure shortly after the final whistle, come back here. We're going to be doing the post-game show right here live from the TOJ Digital Studios to talk New York Jets. Enjoy the game, everybody. Go Jets, and make sure you check your fantasy football teams before 1 o'clock. We'll see you there, baby. Woo! What a great broadcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you for the postgame show.